Like, I'm very skeptical about it. Now, I do think the climate is changing. I do think that humans have some impact on that. The people that are most aggressively promoting the climate change crap are usually these think tank types that do not have my interests in mind. So, like, I'm very suspicious of the climate change people. Now, there's one sector, one critique of climate change people that say that this is just a secular religion. It's like an apocalyptic cult.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
so I think that ultimately, I think there's a hidden agenda behind the climate change stuff. Like, I think personally, what they want to do is they want to set the stage for crap like climate refugees and other stuff, basically to just replace the white populations of the West. What do you think is driving the climate change stuff, and why would a Sachs, a predatory vulture who has absolutely no interest in human well-being or human life, why would someone like this be on the climate change bandwagon?
I'm very glad you asked. There is measurements that they've pushed out since the 70s. And so first, let me preface this with, again, the divisions in their camp, the divisions in the ruling class, right? The one side that says about what temperature we reach, we should just be pushing for green policies anyways, period, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because what they believe in is austerity at global levels.
Ah.
Sure.
That makes perfect sense. I always wondered because I remember all these big publications that tell you that you need to stop eating meat and you should eat insects instead because it's good for the environment. You know what I think? I think the climate change bull is actually an excuse to gaslight people while their living standards go down. I think it's a way to tell people, hey, your living standards are going to plummet. Your wages are going to plummet. You're not going to be able to go to the supermarket and buy a hamburger. And it's not because we're ripping you off. It's not because all the profits are being siphoned to the top. No, it's actually because we're protecting the environment and we're saving the world by doing this. That's another angle that I would put behind the climate change stuff. What do you think of that?
Well, I mean, I think that's what I was trying to get at. But I was saying that, well, that's kind of the ideology that they're handing the common people, saying it's your global or patriotic, however context I want to put it, whatever. It's going to hurt our nation or it's going to hurt the world. Who cares? Whatever. Saying that it's going to hurt you, right? So give up your bread. That's the primary reason. And the people who funded that, right? Look into who this was, who first pushed this idea of climate change. It was Club of Rome. That's Rockefeller, man. That's Standard Oil. That's the monopoly of oil. They're saying they don't want anyone else producing oil around the world. They're saying,
the climate change stuff is it's up there with the open borders immigration stuff in terms of like elite consensus. I find that international Jews are all about the climate change and all that. I mean, you see Goldman Sachs putting on or sponsoring climate change conferences, and you also see stuff like all the Silicon Valley people. Climate change is all they talk about. Increasingly, back to the DSA failing to infiltrate and just being co-opted, AOC, 90% of the she talks about is climate change bull that no one cares about. And that's how you know that she's not that she's probably selling out to the think tanks and the Zog, because I don't know. I think that the climate change stuff certainly isn't of interest to the impoverished people in parts of her district in the Bronx, and it's definitely not of interest to working class Midwest people that depend on cheap gas just to get to their job and be able to pay their rent, not having to pay a ton of money for their gas. So I think you're right that the climate change stuff is just a cover for plutocrats looking to impose austerity on Western countries and do it through the back door and make people feel like they're sacrificing for a greater good or something while their buying power goes down. You're right. People are looking for father figures. They're looking for authority figures in this age where the left has succeeded in eroding authority while doing nothing on the economic front. Because think of it this way, right? If you're a feminine man and you don't attract a woman and you don't have children because of the leftist culture of death, where having children is considered to be taboo on the left now, you're not going to be asking your employer for a family wage. You're going to be content with getting just enough to pay for your roommate shared urban apartment, maybe a couple of drinks at the bar, maybe some of that e-cigarette weed, and some video games, and you're happy. That's all you want. But if you have kids to feed, if you have a family to support, you're going to be fighting harder. You're going to be fighting for what your labor actually costs, with a tenacity that the modern Judeo left man does not have.
And like, I don't have a family, you know what I mean? But I want those things, man. You know what I mean? It's like that's why the young people actually overwhelmingly support Sanders. It's not because Sanders is so PC, bro. It's because Sanders is our best ticket to be able to like have a family and have a house, right?
Exactly.
And move out of our parents' house. What is it, like 50% of the millennials, right? 40, you know what I mean? Live in their parents' house, bro. Like we are done with this shit. You know what I mean? So
I totally agree with you. I find that what is posited as a choice, that people now choose to not have families, just like climate change is a switch and bait, or a bait and switch. That's another bait and switch. People aren't choosing to have family. They just can't afford them. The same is true for women in the workplace. I mean, imagine if, think of this logically, like a lot of women instinctively will buck at the idea of being housewives. But imagine this. Let's put it another way. Let's put it in a way that Cosmo magazine never will. So would you rather be licking envelopes in a corporate office for $15 an hour? Or would you rather be at home paid to play with your kids all day? Most people, most normal women would choose the second one. But the problem is that choice is not available because of various economic factors, rising rents, stagnant wages, the fact that the breadwinner's wage, the man as breadwinner, the family wage is something unions don't even fight for anymore for the most part. So this isn't a choice people are making, because if it was, women wouldn't be pouring all of their maternal instincts into their dog or their cat. So clearly there's something natural there, a natural imperative that the neoliberals are totally hacking and tricking people into thinking it's empowering to live that way.
Not to say that, the bosses of unions have become more charitable. I think the workers in unions have become more fed up. They've actually they've taken a stand in the last few years. Really, I think it goes back to Occupy. If you look into where the fight for 15 minimum wage has taken place, is really in a ripple effect of Occupy. It was a bunch of people who were inspired by Occupy, got involved inside of their sectors in fast food.
Right. No, I agree with that. No, there definitely is a push for that.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is that because labor unions in America today, there's two problems there. One, because of globalization, union organizing, basically because of insourcing through mass immigration, but also outsourcing through the companies moving abroad, union organizing has become very weak now.
Yes.
And another problem too is that the left, the Judeo left, is very anti-white, while labor unions are overwhelmingly white. So the thing is that there's not a lot of appetite for professional leftists to help labor unions fight for better wages and better living conditions. So the problem is like an ideological problem, which is why I always say, we need nationalist labor unions that, will go to the GM factory when they announce that they're going to outsource it. We'll go and we'll fucking shut that shit down, or we'll take it over for ourselves. That's what we need to do. But the left isn't interested in that anymore. They're interested in symbolic things. They're interested in, putting a transgender on the boardroom of a corporation more than they are in fighting for the little people. And that's why the left itself has gone from being, the world of, was it Big Joe from the IWW from 100 years ago fighting for minors, to the world that it is today, where it's like a transgender barista fighting at Starbucks for a third bathroom or some shit. It's all symbolic, and neoliberals are perfectly on board with that. Google supports that. Apple supports that. They have no problem with that. It doesn't cost them anything. I think that liberals were more restrained. Capitalists and liberals were more restrained during the Cold War out of fear of the Soviet Union. Once the Soviet Union collapsed, almost immediately you get NAFTA, you get liberalization, privatization. You already saw Reagan and Thatcher moving the needle in that direction when they started to see that the Soviets were in decline.
Use with Truman. And at the same time, Truman was talking about how they wanted to eliminate all the communists in our country, right? FDR was not talking about it. FDR was saying that, he thought that Stalin was on a right trajectory. He jealous Stalin had, in the same way that he admired what Mussolini was doing, right?
Yeah. Right? Yeah. The New Deal was a ham-fisted attempt at copying what the Nazis and the Italians were doing in the 30s. Well, that was just a very ham-fisted and corrupt way to do it, but they did do it, and a lot of Americans benefited from the New Deal, as much as libertarians will whine about it.
What do you think about why they did that? Why did they do that? Why do you think the liberals are swayed into Nazi ideas or Stalinist ideas? I mean, the libertarians say it's Stalin. The leftists say it's Nazism. Why? Yeah. Why does FDR see these ideas as so important? Why do you think?
It was a reaction. It was a retraction to save their own asses. I mean, there's even a letter by FDR where it's a private letter that he sent to various elites in America saying, if we don't do this, people are going to rise up and kill us. So that was basically the situation they were in. So they did give people some concessions on that front, because the main problem liberalism has always had is that it's never able to provide 100% employment. So without state intervention, that's never going to happen. And that's why the New Deal came about. But then also Truman Eisenhower in the 50s also pursued some similar policies of heavy state intervention to prevent the kind of globalist economic excesses that cause people to revolt against you.
What do you think about a job guarantee then? That's modern monetary theory's like main pitch, right? That MMT that we were just talking about a second ago. What do you think about a job guarantee?
I think it's common sense. Every single person that wants to go to work and contribute to their country has a right to do so. Yes. What world do we live in where they don't? I mean, this was considered common sense in the Middle Ages. Everyone had their own property. They had their own little farm or whatever. Or they were serfs, but they all had jobs. The idea that we can have tens of millions of people out of work when they're desiring work, and then you have another tens of millions of people with only part-time work. This is a social calamity in progress.
Right. Have you seen the Italian Constitution? They say that should be a national right to work. I think that's interesting. The EU has clamped down on that, and now they're not able to realize that.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I will say, though, is that the problem is also globalization of economics. For example, if everyone is supposed to function by the same standards, like you're not taking into consideration the character or the racial constitution of the people. So, for example, the Japanese, they love to work, right? When they want to piss off their boss or they're protesting something,
What do you think about Ukraine? What do you think about what's going on in Ukraine? Everyone on the left is like, oh my God, the Nazis in Ukraine. What do you think? What's going on?
Well, I actually disagree with you, because I see Antifa are more anti-Russian in that context than they are anti-Ukrainian. The only people doing the Ukrainians are Nazis thing are like ham-fisted Russian propagandists on Russia Today. Like, that's just like typical, Russian propaganda. That's really all it is.
Yeah,
because, that's like, so leftists in general, I mean, some tankies might do that, But the overwhelming majority of the left in Europe and America is extremely anti-Russian.